The most recent news is that the foreign minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, is in fact going to be visiting Islamabad, but the Iranian government is saying that it is not to have discussions with any U.S. officials at this point. This is part of bilateral talks, the Iranian government is saying, between Abbas Araghchi. It also looks like he is going to be traveling then to both Russia as well as Oman. And it's important to remember that Oman was actually the original mediator that was trying to ward off war, and negotiations were taking place between the United States and Iran in February. The Omani foreign minister went to the United States, met with J.D. Vance. This was back in February, came out and said it seemed like a reasonable framework for a deal was on the table. And then the United States and Israel launched a surprise attack against Iran on February 28th that began with the assassination of the Iranian supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and other senior officials. And then it was just massive bombing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the Iranians stunned many international observers with the ferocity of their retaliatory strikes across the Persian Gulf, primarily aimed at U.S. military infrastructure and facilities, causing an unprecedented evacuation of American military bases. They also very heavily struck Israel. There, of course, was a round of negotiations that took place between the U.S. and Iran. The Iranian delegation was led by the Speaker of Iran's parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. And there has been this ceasefire. And then the Iranians and the U.S. last week, we are told by Iranian officials, had an understanding over what was going to be announced about the resumption of commercial traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. It never was officially closed, according to Iran. They just said that they were not allowing vessels that were affiliated with the U.S. or Israel or the war against Iran. And then Trump came out and blew up the whole thing by saying, oh, the United States is going to maintain its naval blockade. So there's real questions now of whether there is going to be another round of talks, because Donald Trump is continuing to issue threats. He's promoting a narrative that the Iranian government is in disarray. Iran is saying that they've drawn a red line and that they are not going to engage in another round of talks unless that U.S. naval blockade, which they consider illegal, is lifted. And we're really honored right now to be joined by Dr. Sahar Maranlu. She is she's a legal scholar who is an academic on socio-legal issues at the University of London Royal Holloway. She's Iranian. She also identifies herself as anti-colonialist and anti-occupation. She has become very well known to Arabic language viewers of Al Jazeera's Arabic channel because she's frequently on, since this war started, these panel discussions where she is representing a point of view that has been targeted very severely by many commentators in the broader Persian Gulf region. And we're very honored to have Dr. Maranlu with us right now. Thank you so much for joining us at DropSite.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a great honor for me. Thank you.
I want to get your read on the most recent developments. Of course, the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, is going to be going to Islamabad. But because of your area of focus, I want to begin by asking you about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians are saying that they're respecting the agreement, the ceasefire agreement, but that the United States is engaged in what amounts to a continuing act of war by its operations in the Strait of Hormuz. The other day, some Iranian sources published maps of undersea cables, undersea internet cables. And of course, Iran has fast boats. And by some estimates, they may number even in the thousands. Iran never really relied on large, big conventional naval ships. Trump keeps saying, oh, we've got more than 150 of them. They're at the bottom of the sea. But talk about what you see as the options Iran has if this becomes a protracted reality in the Strait of Hormuz, how Iran would be able to confront this naval blockade that the United States says is going to remain in place until Iran capitulates to American demands.
The whole situation, Jeremy, does not make any sense. We have a ceasefire, which is still firing. we have a blockade, which not actually blocking, because we saw a report from Financial Times that the numbers of Iranian actually tankers bypassing the blockades is increasing now. As I think it's around more than 35 actually tankers. And remember, when the Iranian they enter the Indian or Pakistani waters, these waters under the international law and the UN Convention of the Laws of the Sea is still belong to the coastal state, which is Pakistan and India, so not international water. So what they can do, they can actually transfer the cargo when they are in those water. So the blockade actually is not functioning. So that's what's happening on the ground. And also, I mean, the other fact is that Iran has shown a very quite resilient economic perspective, especially under the sanction. Iran is not only the coastal state, we have land actually territory as well, quite a strong trade with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Turkey. And remember, another issue is that the influence of China, which is actually needs to be really taking into consideration, is all of this discussion in gray zone is increasing, which is in a strategic actually perspective works better even for Iran. And so Trump thinks that the time is working for him, but I think the time actually is clicking against Trump, because still the price of the oil globally is increasing. Still there is a blockade, so the Strait of Hormuz has been quite smartly actually has managed and strategically has managed by Iranian, because as I mentioned, this is not a full closure. And Iran actually showed after the Lebanese ceasefire truce, I would say, not a ceasefire truce. So Iran shows that it has an ability to reopen and reclose under its sovereign discretion. So Iran has a control over that waterway. Another issue is that I think geography really favors Iran. So Iran still is a coastal state. Iran still has, from the geographic perspective, is closer to Pakistan, to Turkey, to Afghanistan, and actually share it with Oman and Gulf state. So I think the whole situation is, I've heard this somewhere, is like a empire suicidal. So this is US overbetting that the raw power, firepower, raw military, low economic power can actually survive within this very complex geopolitical actually situation. So this is a self-inflicted policy working against US interests, I would say, in this region.
The narrative that has been manufactured or formulated, particularly, I mean, this has been a kind of theme throughout the 6 weeks or so of this war, but it really intensified in recent days, where Trump came out and said that talks are going to happen, and that JD Vance is already on his way to Islamabad for discussions, and that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are going to be on their way there. And Trump claimed that the Iranians had agreed to allow the American military to come into Iran to collect the highly enriched uranium, which he keeps referring to as nuclear dust, that Iran had told him that they would completely open the waterways. And then the Iranians, and I started talking to Iranian officials, and they were saying, we agreed to nothing of the sort, and we are not going to go to another round of talks until they lift this naval blockade. And then Trump says, well, the naval blockade is going to stay in place. And so it really was clear that Trump had lied and had dramatically misread the situation, once again underestimated the Iranian side. The Iranians say no, they draw their line in the sand. And then Trump and his aligned media entities start to concoct a narrative that the reason he had to extend the ceasefire unilaterally was because the Iranian government is in disarray, that the Iranians themselves don't know who is in charge, and that the United States needed to give them time to get their act together so that they could then come up with a plan and deliver it to the United States. Now, what I've been told by Iranian officials is that all of their systems are still in place, that the nonsense about somebody being under house arrest, or the, Ghalibaf has been taken into custody, or Arachi has been incapacitated, be under house arrest, that it's all sort of psychological warfare. The main way that Dropsite keeps going and stays afloat is through you, through people that appreciate our content, watch our live stream, read our articles, enjoy or benefit from our social media postings. We have a really phenomenal team of people, particularly on our X feed, which we operate as sort of a 24/7 newswire. Our great colleague Herman Gill at the captain's chair there with running the social media feed. We're expanding our YouTube presence. Make sure that you subscribe on all platforms. We also now have a WhatsApp channel that I encourage you to become a member of. And if you can afford it and you aren't already, please do become a paid subscriber to Dropsite News. You can do it at dropsitenews.com. You can also gift a subscription to a family member, a friend, or even a foe. On behalf of our really hardworking and dedicated team of people at Dropsite News, I want to thank you very much for your support and for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Scahill.